Good. Board of Alderman Work Session is called to order. First item on the agenda is staff report.
I'll defer to the regular meeting for the staff report.
Sounds good. Public comment? Nobody?
None.
Direction 5 and survey results.
Move over here. If Linda will pull up PowerPoint and be my driver. You all received the information from ETC Institute on our Direction Finder survey. Very pleased with the results. Feel like this is good baseline information for us to be able to have. Some really good information about areas for improvement, areas where residents rate us highly, but then also good information to help us understand how we compare to other communities. I have a number of slides. All are included in the information you received. We'll be rolling information out on social media and the like as well, providing this information. But I wanted to highlight a few of the areas and kind of talk through some of the information. One of the reasons the ETC is so strong in doing these surveys is when they've done it for a significant amount of time in a number of communities, the information that they provide. Your packet included a summary of their methodology, charts depicting the overall results, benchmarking data for how we compare to not only other Kansas and Missouri communities, but also nationwide. The important satisfaction information is very useful also in moving forward and making critical decisions and help us identify priorities for investment. And then, of course, you have the tabular data to see all the information in the comments. And then the GIS maps, I think, are very useful. We didn't have a lot of variation in those GIS maps in our information, but they are also helpful. Linda, if you'll scroll ahead to the location map. We had a really good response. We also had a good area represented throughout the community. We have shared the information with Future IQ, who will be doing the strategic planning process, and that will inform their process and really serves as good background for them. They will be conducting some surveys themselves as preparation for several pieces. Here I'm going to turn off. Linda, if you'll advance to the next slide. Oh, you do? Yay, thank you. Wasn't sure we had that. So bottom line, Smithville residents have an overall positive perception of the city. Our overall satisfaction with the quality of major city services is above the national and Missouri and Kansas averages. We do identify a number of areas for improvement. And I don't think any of these areas are significant surprises to us, based on the discussions that we've had, as well as just what we know as the needs of the community and the timing of the survey. The surveys went out in February, and responses were received at a time when we were significantly under construction. And I think some of the planning responses, planning for future growth, are probably affected by the fact that people couldn't maneuver downtown the way they'd like to, couldn't get across that bridge. I think those are indicative of that information. One of the things that we want to talk about through the budget process, and one of the questions that we need to discuss, is how frequently we want to continue to obtain this information. And as we do conduct future surveys, we'll probably want to look at doing those at different times of the year so we get a different feel for responses. The demographics. Oh my God. Okay. Forward. I'm on, aren't I? Are reflective of, I think they're very reflective of our community as a whole. They do indicate in the report that we had more than 670 responses. They're very pleased with that number to help with a satisfaction rating. 80% of residents surveyed who had an opinion were satisfied, ranking either 4 or 5. with the overall quality of police services. 71% with the quality of solid waste, 67% with customer service from city employees, and 58% with the quality of city communications. Some of these totals seem lower than what we would like. Comparison data, which is included in the packet and I'll go through as well, is helpful in understanding national and regional response and how we relate there. Just because our responses are high doesn't mean, or our percentages are high, doesn't mean we'll stop striving for better. And because they're low but comparatively high doesn't mean we won't stop striving to improve as well. Based on the information of the top 3 choices that people had of those items that should receive most emphasis, the next couple of years, survey responses indicate that maintenance of city streets, effectiveness of community planning development, and flow of traffic and congestion management are our 3 highest priorities. The items that influence perception within the city, 82% of residents who have an opinion were surveyed, were overall satisfied with the feeling of safety they had in the city. And with overall quality of life, 68%, 59% were satisfied with the overall quality of services provided by the city. Public safety services rated incredibly high. 85% of residents surveyed who had an opinion were satisfied with the overall quality of police protection. They were satisfied with the attitude and behavior of the police personnel and with the city's overall efforts to prevent crime. People also felt safe at home in their neighborhoods, in residential and commercial areas. And 91% of residents had an overall feeling of safety within the community. Code enforcement is an area that obviously we can strive to be better in. We have identified this as a goal and have added another code enforcement, full-time code enforcement officer. Code enforcement responses can also be across the board. Someone may express a dissatisfaction with code enforcement because we've required them to make improvements to their property. This, as you can see, 45% of residents were satisfied with the exterior maintenance of businesses and properties. 40% were satisfied with the overall quality of building and the permit process, and 40% were satisfied with enforcing cleanup of debris on private property. Obviously, an area that we know needs some effort. 70% of those who had an opinion were satisfied with the number of walking and biking trails in the community. 69% were satisfied with the maintenance of city parks, and 67% with the overall appearance of city parks. 74% of residents have visited a park in the last 12 months, and 27% have participated in a program. Parks and recreation, particularly maintenance, is another area, particularly when you look at the importance. Maintenance of city parks, overall appearance of city parks, and quality of playground equipment are items that people see as most important. Interesting, both here and the slide I'll show later, our residents showed a really high level of degree to which they would be supportive of paying for additional services. We'll see later, particularly with pools, but with regards to parks and recreation, recreational facilities, almost 50% are supportive of paying more for additional recreational facilities, with another 19% either neutral or not sure at this point in time. Those are good numbers to start with as we continue through processes where we identify opportunities for expansion within the community. Satisfaction with city maintenance, as I noted, our numbers here are not stellar. I don't know that any of the information is overwhelmingly surprising to us. 67% of residents were satisfied with the maintenance of street signs, traffic signals, mowing of city property was 65%. The areas that are most important to people are really the maintenance of city streets, maintenance of neighborhood streets, snow removal, and maintenance of sidewalks. City communication, interesting that our numbers are about 55% of residents who have an opinion were satisfied with the information they received from the city. That comparison to other communities is kind of around average or slightly below. One of the governing body goals is to improve communications, and that's one of the areas that as staff we continue to try to identify new and different ways to provide information to our residents, and hopefully through the strategic planning process we can identify some other ways there. But that we noted through our budget process discussion as well, that that's one of the areas that we'll focus on, particularly in administration and citywide. Talking about communication and sources of information, people note Facebook, really about 50% of the people that provided information got their information from Facebook, and then about 45 word of mouth. It's interesting if you look at sources and then the next information of the preferred method of communication, people prefer to receive a city newsletter. That's kind of one of those issues, and I'll talk later this evening that I met with Patty Gintrup this morning starting to think about retreat process for the future, and newsletters are a hard thing. People, they don't get it, want it. If they get it, sometimes throw it away, don't read it. So finding the sweet spot for that is difficult. The city website, people look to as well. We have tried to improve our website. I think there's some additional information we need to work toward updating as well. So it's interesting that Facebook, 50% of the respondents get their information from Facebook, but a slightly lower number, that's their preferred method for getting information. So I think we need to find that sweet spot balance of how we can provide best information to folks. Customer service from city employees. 40% of residents indicated that they have had contact with a city employee with a question or problem or complaint during the past year. Of those 40%, and those who had an opinion, 80% thought the employees were always or usually courteous and polite, while 67% thought the employees always or usually gave prompt and accurate, complete information. Customer service is one of those areas that continually strive to be better. You'll see from a customer service perspective, we rate really well compared to other communities, but we want to strive to continue to improve on that as well. Quality of life in the community, really good numbers. Most residents, 87%, were satisfied with the city of Smithville as a place to live, and 87% were satisfied with the city as a place to raise children. It is interesting here, and the mayor and I had a conversation this morning. We do great well as a place to work. We're a veteran community where people go outside of town to get their jobs, and I think that'll be something that'll be a piece of discussion through the strategic planning process as well. As what do we want to look like into the future? Level of support for amenities. As I noted earlier, 2/3 of residents surveyed, 67%, were very supportive or supportive of increasing funds for a pool. And close behind that was an indoor athletic complex. So there's a pretty significant amount of support there for some new amenities. Then I indicated earlier, very interesting that 66% would be willing to pay increased taxes for community amenities.
I didn't go back to check, but I think that's about the percent, wasn't it, that the sales tax passed was pretty close.
I think that was very close to what it was, and that's exactly, you read my mind, Melissa. I think that with this, if we talked about this at the retreat, the school district bond issuance, that election and then our election last spring has showed, I think, some real foresight on the part of the residents to support that growth in the community and address what those needs are. So that willingness, hopefully we'll be able to kind of dig a little deeper on that information and go through the strategic planning process and move forward with that. So then this is really the breakdown of pool and indoor athletic complex were really the two big items that people were most supportive of seeing additional funding for. One of the things that's really nice about the Direction Finder is being able to compare ourselves to other communities regionally, and that regional is Missouri and Kansas communities that they include, and then nationally. In 25 of the 52 areas that were assessed, we rated higher than the regional areas, and in 16 of those areas. We rated at least 5% above Missouri and Kansas average as well. The benchmarking information. Overall quality of police services, really significantly higher than both regional and national averages. Our solid waste services got good ratings as well. Communications is one area where we need improvement. But if you note that compared to other communities, we're significantly higher. Overall effectiveness of city communications is about 58%, where the averages are closer to 45%. Doesn't mean we're happy to set on those numbers, but pleased to see them kind of above those national averages. Areas where we need to improve, I don't think are any big surprise to us: maintenance of city streets and parks. And I think parks is both maintenance and then variety and availability of amenities. Across the board in public safety, as we've seen a trend there, very high ratings. Code enforcement, across the board, pretty low ratings. But I think that is part of one of the things that we know and are working to address. And it gives us some work plan for moving forward. Parks and recreation, walking and biking trails, high percentage. I think people probably associate lake trails to a certain extent with us. Maintenance of city parks, quality of parks and playground equipment, all areas of the parks we need to spend some time taking a look at. City maintenance as a whole, also areas for improvement. Maintenance of city streets, street traffic signals, cleanliness of streets. I hope you all have noticed the street sweeper's been out the last week or so, and we've been collecting a lot of sand and salt off of the streets. So continue to try to move forward there. City communication, again, a place where we need to be able to work to identify areas. And I think one of the things that would be helpful here too is having this benchmark information. We can contact ETC and find out the other communities that are included and reach out to them to find out some ways that they're communicating with folks and what they're doing. City employees, the services provided, higher than average in almost all areas there. Again, overall quality of life very high as a place to live and a place to raise children. Right around the national average is a place to retire, and again below average on a place to work. Overall, those investment priorities and kind of summary moving forward, as noted, those areas that we really need to look at are maintenance of city streets, effectiveness of community planning and development, flow of traffic and congestion management, and overall quality of our water sewer utilities. I would add that from a communications, code enforcement, and parks and maintenance standpoint, those are areas that we can look at. Overall, as I said, very pleased with the results, very pleased with the information to be able to move forward. I think it's great timing, not only as we go into strategic planning, but also as we go into retreat with you all and as we start the budget process. I think this provides a good amount of information to help inform a significant number of discussions. I don't have any questions. I don't know if there are many I can answer, but I wanted to make sure that you all did have this information. As I indicated last week, Nikki reviewed this information with the department directors, and we started talking about that. And we'll begin to roll out some public information and get this information to the residents, and then also a plan on how we can improve in some of the areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
have any questions? Well, budget discussion. Chief's up first, and Drew's gonna ask for everything in the world since he's
He's-
highest rated
Does he
there.
need anything though? If I may.
Benefits to go first.
Oh, and I probably.
I mean, yeah, you don't need anything, right? That's the other way about that.
Just as a point of introduction, before we start this, we'll let you know the information is included in the packet. We try to really provide as consistent of information as possible. And the department directors, as we go through these processes, have been asked to provide an update on 2019, kind of where we stand, some outstanding issues that they might have, how they're doing on the benchmark information, some questions and concerns they might have about that. And then looking ahead.
That's all I wanted to know.
We're not being incredibly specific in the information we're providing on 2020, just providing some generalities, because we're just starting.
That's all I need.
Okay.
We'll have this meeting tonight. In April, we'll review the remaining departments. In early May, we will review our fleet maintenance program that Nikki is reviewing and have discussion with you all on capital improvements. And that'll fall right before the retreat, and Patty knows where we are on that, so I think we can have some really good discussion at the retreat to help us inform that budget process. This is kind of the process that we've got laid out at this point in time. And for each department, we have kind of a one-page summary, dashboard that shows those areas that we talked about. So now I'll turn it over to the chief.
I think you've got a copy of this slide, so you can take a look at it. Those numbers are calculated in February. And just a third year in. So when we look down those percentages on everything, we're doing really well. Personnel, pretty close on target there, almost a third. Capital expenses outlays, that's pretty low. We've got several things approved, they've been ordered. We don't pay for that stuff till it's delivered, so that's why we've got a lot of stuff kind of out deck waiting to be implemented here as spring comes in. We got a copy of a review report there as well. We look at the benchmarks that we set for this year. Percentage of violent crime clearance rates, I think I went in and explained a little bit about those in my report. These numbers were calculated at the end of February. 33% is where we were at then. I recalculated these numbers at 4 o'clock today. That number is actually up to 50% now for this year, for this reporting year. The property crime clearance rate was at 7% at the end of February. Calculated through to today's date this afternoon, and it's up to 15% as well. Looking at some numbers we put in the staff report regarding these clearance rates as well. If we use the calendar year of 2018 as kind of a whole year snapshot of what a year looks like, we were at 58% for last year, and our property crime clearance rates for all of 2018 were at 20%. Clearance rates are calculated in the year that they're reported in, not the year that they're clear, that the arrest is made. So a detective may work on a case, an officer may work on a case, say January, February, March, and clear a case from October, November, December. That's actually counted in the previous year. So we looked at the violent crime clearance rate that was 58% because we actually looked at about a 5-year window. And typically we were running 71 to 77% clearance rates in violent crimes. So I asked the detectives, what's happened here? They were nice enough to remind me we changed the way we calculate a few things. And we actually now keep track of cases that have been sent to the prosecutor but not been filed. We've got cases sitting there waiting on action in the prosecutor's office that hasn't been filed. We've got about a 97, 98% rate of cases that are sent over being filed. And if 97, 98% of our cases sitting there are that 58% number for 2018 actually jumps up to 75%. So I think that's a number that as time goes on, those cases work through the system over there. I think that number's going to come up as well. We looked at an average for 5 years on violent crimes. We were averaging about 70%. Looking at FBI statistics over that same 5-year period was about 46.5.
So is the benchmark right, or do you think the benchmark needs to change?
I would like to wait until we get some data from comparable agencies, kind of through some of the information that was in the previous, to kind of try to find other communities similar to ours to compare to. I think on the violent crime data, I think we're pretty close and pretty good there. In fact, I like kind of having a benchmark up there as something to strive for. I think when you look at the raw numbers and you look at calculations, both in national averages, and I'm speculating we'll see that when we look at comparables, but we haven't got that information yet. When we look at property crimes, which have a considerably lower clearance rate, our 5-year average on property crimes is 22%. The national average through FBI statistics is 19%. And in the last 5 years, both in property crimes and in violent crimes, we exceed the national average every year in clearance rates. So I think that may be something to have as a future discussion, maybe next year's budget. But I think we'd like to gather some more data and some more comparables to look at too before we talk about, is that something to look at, is that something to set?
In addition to the information that we could glean from other communities that do the direction finder survey, one of the items that we have included in the strategic planning process is for future IQ to help us identify some benchmark communities. Those would be communities similar to us on the outside fringes, kind of that rural metro area, larger metropolitan areas in the Midwest. So we have those communities identified. We'd like to be able to then also really establish a dialogue with them in all of the benchmark areas that we look at, ways that we can improve, how we can share information with them, and learn from them in those ways then as well. What benchmarks we might change? Are we measuring the right things? What are they doing? So I think that will really help us in moving forward as well.
And that's part of where it's going to. You know, obviously we have our Northland peer communities that we can look at, but also what we expect from our strategic planning survey with the information coming forward, peer communities who are not necessarily in this exact metro area, but are similar. So, because the property crime clearance rate was one I wanted to get a little bit more information on. Obviously, that's been a hot topic of, you know, I have my 9 o'clock routine, which includes a garage, but, you know, where we at, how does that look? What do you think we need to do going forward? Because that's part of this is, you know, where we are with our numbers, but what are the things that we need to be anticipating and doing to make sure that we're providing the safe and effective community that we want to provide?
Yeah. That's what we want to look at too. So next, look at the average response time for priority calls. This information is
So going back to that moment, how are we doing on property crimes? How do you really think we're doing? What do we need to be doing?
I think we're doing pretty well on those. While those numbers seem low, property crimes and violent crimes are two different animals. Property crimes are very hard to solve because the typical property crime comes in, somebody got in my car, took my laptop, my iPod, my purse, whatever I left there. It's rare that the victim and the offender have face-to-face contact like they do in violent crimes. So that's the major obstacle we have to overcome with property crimes. The other thing that calculates in the last few years, and it's not unique to Smithville, it's not even unique to the Northland, it's been happening all over the metro on both sides of the state line, is these groups of individuals, for lack of a better term, that will come in and victimize a particular area, concentrated area, hard and quick, and then they'll move on. We've seen it happen where they go through Platte County, they move over here, they maybe stop in Smithville for a night or two, maybe somewhere over in the unincorporated part of Clay County, and then everything calms down. We don't think anything for months until it comes up again. A local agency was able to interrogate a couple of them. One of them shared some information about the Northland as a whole. This wasn't directed to Smithville or Clay County or Platte County, just on the Northland as a whole. And when asked, he said, it's too easy. He flat out told the detective, it's too easy. You guys make it too easy, we can't stay away. Which is why we started the social media campaign, kind of the 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. routine. remind people of that and get information out there as well. And plus try to put out some success stories when that happens. And we'll have, I think, we put out a new program starting this weekend, asking people to help us with, if they have home video systems or if their businesses do as well, try to make it where officers and detectives can quickly identify those places and try to get that video. We seem to be more successful when we can't capture something on video, especially if it's any quality, and getting it out on social media and getting it seen. We do tend to see more success with that than if we don't have it.
Mine's pretty good quality of the time.
Actually, I saw that. I appreciate that. So we've had
So
actually
for
good
those
response.
of you who are looking to go somewhere, avoid my neighborhood.
You've not made it easy. No.
And in 4 days, we've had a really good response to that. We've had almost 30 people sign up just in 4 days. So we've been very pleased with that so far, just from that one social media post.
Did you get many out of the business license renewal? I know we did something with those as well.
We did get some out of that, and we're going to try to transfer all that data in with, kind of commingle with this data so that it could all be plotted on a map that where an officer can access it from his phone or from the computer car, literally tap on a little bubble on the map, it pops open, gives us a name, a phone number, and an email address of the person to contact to find out, did your video capture anything that might be of use. We need to move on to average response times. That's calculated through what's called a CAD system, computer-aided dispatching. Platte County, and I think I explained this in the report, hopefully answer other questions ahead of time on that. Platte County has gone with a new CAD system, and they're in the process of transferring over old data, learning a new system. We've been repeatedly reminding them this is data we're going to want, we're going to need. They're just not at a point where they can extract that and calculate and provide it to us yet. I spoke with the director of their dispatching unit just sometime in the last 10 days and reminded her that's something that's going to be important to us, and we're going to need that, and it is on her list. Typically, they have regular meetings with department heads about twice a year. There'll be one coming up probably in April, where we'll be talking about things we need from them and how we're doing and working relationship with them. So that is one of the things that will be at the top of my list in the April meeting is I need this additional data coming out of the CAD system. And that was part of the reason for them going to a newer modern system, to be able to gather data and extract it in a usable form. And then Cynthia touched on earlier the citizen satisfaction survey. We were happy with that. I mean, 85%, so we exceeded that expectation there as well. And kind of looking forward into the next year, a lot of what we're probably going to see is a plan on replacing equipment as it comes to the end of the life expectancy. We're probably looking at vehicles, portable radios. We started replacing some tasers this year. We'll continue that into next year, and then probably looking at some usable workspace inside the building here to make things flow and function better. As we explained earlier, we transitioned our court over to Circuit 7, and that has gone smoother than expected. And then Jeanette has transitioned from clerk to prosecutor assistant and is doing well there. So we're figuring out how that position works with the public and expectations and everything there. And it's all moving rather smoothly. In fact, the court transition is, I'd say, in its final legs. Last 10-15% or so. A lot of that is finishing up financials, letting checks clear the bank so the accounts can be zeroed and cleared out, and finishing that up. So I think we're on track to get that done probably the next 60 days. We're hoping if we have decent addresses on most of our customers. And I think I touched on a lot of stuff in the report there. It was in your package, so if anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
I have one. Has there been any issues yet with getting detectives to Circuit 7 hearings, or has that been pretty seamless to having folks down there?
Well, we only had the one court date in February. The next one's tomorrow. So we're kind of working through that. I don't anticipate many issues there. In fact, I think the number of appearances that an officer, the average officer will make in a year is going to go down, because whereas when we held court here, we had to have personnel bodies here to do work and provide security and move files and all the incidental stuff. Over there, an officer's only going to make a court appearance if somebody's pleading not guilty and they want to try. And the court system won't even subpoena that officer until that's been established by the defense and they set a court date. So I expect the average officer to make maybe 2 to 3 court appearances the most in a year. I think anything over that's going to be a busy year for that officer with the new system. But in about 6 months, we'll update you when we have access. We're not speculating. Anything else? Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Henry.
Good evening. You've got the development slide that shows where we're at budgetarily, and where we anticipated we would be on that. The benchmarks, several of them, some of them you'll see, the 2 white ones are blank simply because we haven't had any new commercial permits, so no applications mean no issuance. That number will be different here in probably another 30 days from what I'm seeing. I've got preliminary stuff already rolling in. So as it relates to residential, our time frame is to try to get application and issuance of a permit to under 17 days. We're currently at 5 days. I will give you a quick heads up. That's really limited data because we've had 5 building permits since the weather's kind of kicked us. That number is fairly consistent associated with residential building permits. However, from last year's data, we get a fairly quick turnaround on the application and issuance work. Sometimes the number's kind of high too, because some of them go up a little bit on an individual basis because they submit an application that is 98% complete, they're missing something, so we can't issue. But we'll go ahead and walk through that one. On the residential request for inspections, we're running about a day and a half. Standard for us, you ask for an inspection, you get it the next day. Sometimes we have inspections requested, it's ready come whenever, so those are not scheduled until the inspector's going to be in that general area in the next day or 2. That's why it kind of bumps up to a day and a half. And then others, we have concrete inspections and we have sewer inspections. When those deep underground or concrete is going on, usually that's a 4-hour turnaround. If they call us in the morning, we're inspecting that afternoon. So it's a same-day turnaround. It's fairly average. In that, we don't have any of them that I'm aware of that have ever been beyond that period of time. As it relates to the inspection and voluntary compliance in red, that one is associated with code enforcement. We have a new code enforcement officer been on for 7 months. The current goal is less than 38 days. We're currently at 45. Last month, that same number was 35. And we anticipate best we can evaluate is we're not requiring people to come into compliance to paint their house in the winter. But if they've got the issue, they're getting the notice. That's been the number 1 complaint that's come to me is I'm getting a notice to paint my house and it's winter. And I've got 30 days to do it. Yeah. We'll give you time and we'll extend that time for reasonable cost. Frozen ground and frozen everything else is that. So that's part of it. I anticipate next month that'll be even higher. And then it'll start going back down because we're getting into weather where people can start responding. That data of 45 does not include March. Yes?
So for that code issue, what's like the top couple issues that folks are having?
Right now, it's kind of even between trash and debris and junk stored in the yard and falling eaves, paint, peeling, that kind of stuff, broken windows. We've got a few of the bigger issues that are regular repeaters that we're hitting them every month now, that are kind of dragging on those numbers. But right now, obviously, in this time frame, it's not weeds and grass. That will be the biggest, it always is. But right now, it's just junk in the yard, you know, debris, trash. It's winter, so it gets set out, and the next thing you know, it gets rained on, snowed on, the box is now trash, and nobody's picked it up yet. But it becomes an eyesore, and it can become a nuisance from the standpoint of bugs and rodents and the like. So that's what we're seeing now. The number of cases resolved through forced compliance, the goal is to have that less than 11%. Right now, that's 5%, so we're real good on that. Of that 5%, 4 people have half of that, multiple tickets to the same people. So how we evaluate those benchmarks, I don't know. When we've got one person that owns 3 houses that are ready. They are problematic, but they're not ready to be torn down because they're not unsafe. And the citizen satisfaction with the speed of code compliance, as Cynthia mentioned earlier, it's low, we knew it's low. And what we don't know is, as it relates to just the speed, is that somebody saying they're not giving me enough time, or is it's not happening fast enough? I'm looking at it that it's not happening fast enough. That's what people are frustrated with. If we happen to have a surveyor who just got a letter, and they've got to paint their place in 30 days, and it's raining or it's frozen, they may have complained about the time's not enough, but ultimately we want to speed that up. Full-time, board put that in for this last year. We've had that full-time position now for 7 months, and she's got a whole stack of stuff, so she's making progress. Definitely making progress on that front. And then in the looking ahead to fiscal year 20, related to the citizen survey stuff that we just went through, comp plan, transportation master plan, and some equipment replacement are the big needs. The long-term planning is the transportation and the comprehensive plan. Those are really what we need, so we can start triggering items onto developers as associated with when the development comes. The developers are paying for these things, not our citizens. I think that's kind of a brief overview. If there are any specifics.
The specifics I hope we can get kind of going forward, and we kind of went through this a little bit last year. Equipment replacement is kind of broad. What is it? When is it? How much do you expect?
Yeah,
That's
ultimately.
good for everyone, so I'll just pick on you in a moment, but.
Sure.
And if I can kind of respond there as well, with providing the information, Nikki doing the review of all the equipment. I purposely didn't provide a lot of the information from the departments because I want you, when we come into that information, to look at what Nikki's analysis is, kind of blindly without some of the departmental wishes. And we can get you all of that information, but see the full assessment. That's kind of what my methodology and analysis has been there.
Okay. Then maybe next year it can be a little more together, because part of what I'm looking for from this are what are those things that are truly important that we aren't getting in front of us that we need to make sure we're aware of.
Right. And some of them from our equipment, I would estimate is a small portion of the total budget estimate. We're probably talking 20,000 total for equipment replacement. That includes tools that need to be replaced and other initiatives that may come up, more traffic counters, different traffic counters, that kind of stuff when we get into that. But right now, the big guns are the comprehensive plan and the transportation master plan. We have the water master plan completed. As you see up there, it just came through. They gave us a lot of good information. The transportation master plan will tie well with the street department as well, and maintenance of streets. We need to know where the main roads are and what needs to get hit. That master plan will give us the ability to upgrade in a fashionable way, get it done properly.
And one of my goals, and Jack and I have talked about this as well, as we move out of this construction push, is for Jack to move more of that strategic planning and thinking and looking at the comprehensive plan, transportation master plan, looking more broadly at those things rather than the ongoing construction management here. And I'm looking at that over the longer term, how we address that one as well.
Any other questions? Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here for the Finance Department review. I provided you guys with our figures in the Finance Department by those four main categories as well as the overall total. We're at just under about $106,000 spent of our $296,000 budget, which is right around 35%. And being about a third of the way through the year, you might say that was a little bit, maybe a touch high. So I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. First and foremost, and this is kind of not just affecting my department, but all these departments that you see up here today. Payroll so far, November, which was the first month of the fiscal year, was a 3-pay month. So we kind of started off being a little bit on the high side of that. We're going to be kind of trending back down towards normal as we approach the halfway point of the year. So we are at 33.5%, but we're actually right on target with where we need to be. Of our contracted services, we're closer to 50%. A majority of that $16,000 that we've spent so far is on the services for our audit that was performed back in December. So, of course, we've already incurred those services, we've already paid that bill, so it's a large chunk of that $34,000 budget. So, in fact, it's about half of that $34,000 budget, so it's no surprise that we spent about half of that line item as well. Commodities and capital outlay, commodities is looking very well. Capital outlay just includes the money that we budgeted this year for new computers for Nicole and Beth, who are my finance specialists. And then I have a laptop, and I was working solely off of a laptop for a while, so I got a docking station with a couple screens so that I can have a little bit better workspace. We completed that project early in the year, right around $2,500. So we came in under budget on that. As we move on to our benchmarks, the first benchmark is to have a very strong or extremely strong bond rating. We went through our bond rating call in January for the 2019 GO, the second part of that GO issuance, and we were awarded a AA- rating, which is in the very strong category, which is what we wanted. I've highlighted that benchmark in yellow because we sort of set a mini goal there, or a sub-goal of having a AA rating. And we did that with some lofty expectations, and we were excited, being that we had a bond rating in 2018, we were having another one in 2019. Didn't quite get to that rating, but we were in the overall very strong category, which is what we wanted. The second benchmark is percentage of on-time debt service payments over the course of the year. We will have 8 debt service payments in fiscal year 19. We've had 4 so far. We've made all 4 on time. We will make the other 4 on time, so we're tracking perfectly on that benchmark. The third benchmark is the number of deficiencies that are noted in our audit. Our fiscal year 18 audit was completed and presented to you in February. We had 4 findings noted in the audit. For comparison, the 2017 audit, we had 7, and the benchmark goal is less than 6, so 4 being our goal. Of course, we still strive to lower that as much as we can, hopefully eventually to a goal of 0. The fourth benchmark is the number of bank reconciliations completed within 15 days of month end. We've had 4 opportunities to perform bank reconciliations so far. We've completed 2 of those within that 15-day window. So we've not met our goal, and unfortunately that means that since the goal is 100%, we're not going to meet the goal when you look at the whole year picture. Disappointed in that. There are some reasons behind it. The audit noted that that task needed to move away from my desk, so we've been training an employee, and obviously that takes a little bit longer time. I do anticipate, and it is a goal of mine, that these next 8 months that we still have to perform a reconciliation on, we will hit that 15-day window, and we'll be up over 80%. And going forward, I would not suggest or recommend that we change that 100%. It needs to be at 100%, and it needs to get done within that 15 days. And I'd like to get to a point where in 2 or 3 years from now, we're still at 100%, and the way we adjust that benchmark is to start to go down the number of days to 12, 10 in that direction. The fifth benchmark is the percentage of citizens satisfied with customer service. Our benchmark was a goal of 80% or higher, and the survey showed us that 67% rated us either they were satisfied or very satisfied with customer service. There was another 24% that said that they were neutral on the idea. So the benchmarks for that comparison, both nationally and in Kansas and Missouri, are lower than the 67% that we had. So we're happy with that number, but we still definitely strive to be higher than that. And we're trying to brainstorm some ideas to get some smaller, kind of pinpointed customer service surveys or questionnaires out there, so we can try to determine areas where we can take a step forward and improve even better, whether it's phone calls or in person or whatever the case may be. Looking ahead to the 20 budget, I don't anticipate anything large happening. We continue to see an increase in credit card fees, both revenue that we're taking in and expenses that we're paying out, just with more and more people using credit cards to pay specifically their utility bills, but really all kinds of business licenses and all those things. So you'll continue to see those kind of trend up, but the revenue's there to cover that as well. And Cindy and I will be sitting down and talking about being more active in some local communities, meaning some local government finance groups, specifically the GFOA, and so that Smithville can really be recognized in those areas, and I can do a little bit of a better job networking with some of those people that are in the same positions as I am. One thing I didn't know in my staff report at all, and it really came to me kind of as I was preparing for this meeting. Both the rating call that we got in 18, or the rating call that we had in 18, and the one that we had in 19, those were paid for out of the proceeds from the debt. And we've set this benchmark that we want to have a bond rating in the very strong and strong category. If in future years we want to have that rating call to know where we're at, to make sure that we're improving, that's about $11,500 price tag. I don't know if that's something, I'd like your feedback, it doesn't have to be today, but eventually on whether that's an important thing to spend every year so that we have that rating. Is it every other year appropriate? Just kind of how we move forward with wanting to address that benchmark. And maybe the benchmark gets tweaked a little bit to say, you know, the most recent bond rating is in this category and it has to be less than, 36 months old or something like that. But that's a concern that I have going forward is making sure that if we're going to follow up with that rating call, that we make sure that we budget that $11,000 so that we can do it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
You just answered the one question I was going to have.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll quickly take you through the elected officials and administration budgets. The elected official budget on expenditures, really on target in most areas. The contracted services, slightly over, in part because of the survey. We've spent that money upfront, and we potentially will go over a bit in that area because the strategic plan is about $2,500 more than what we had anticipated. We acknowledged that there would be some savings, so we would try to anticipate that coming out of economic development, which is in a different area, so we'll show higher in your all's budget. The benchmark information, we discussed the quality of local government. Our goal was 78%. Overall, that was 45%. And value received from tax dollars, 37% versus a 70% goal. I think those are areas we can continue to strive toward, but recognize where we are. A few things to think about as we move forward. implementation and that process. Ongoing review of the benchmarking data, just like Dan brought up, are some of the things, are they stale after a while? Do we continue doing that? And I think Dan's example of the bond rating, a lot of communities have that as a goal, and they maintain that from, if we don't have another bond rating for 2 or 3 years, we may maintain what we've got. I don't anticipate, I think it's something that Dan's participation in GFOA, discussion with other communities, and talking to our financial advisor, is it useful for us to go out and be rated on occasion so that we know where we stand? That's something that we need to take a look at, but looking at all of our benchmarks from that perspective, and as I indicated earlier as well, working with those other communities that we identified through the strategic planning processes, some different areas we can look at, and ways we can improve in the areas that we are measuring. Then one question that I do have as we go through the budget process, and I alluded to it as I made the survey presentation, would like the board to start thinking about frequency of if it's worth doing the survey, if you'd like to do it on a periodic basis, and start thinking about, is that something to look at every year, and many communities do it repeatedly because the information in part is benchmarking yourself and how you improve over time there too. I think probably my thought on that, and my recommendation would be every other year, trying to hit that information if we're able to budget that. Were there questions in general? Would you like to official budget? And then on the administrator's budget or administration department budget, overall we are at about 15.5%.
Oops, sorry, wrong way.
Sorry, I was like, that's not right. We're at 35%. Contracted services and commodities are both over. Part of that is when we've made expenditures. Some of it is the expenditures we've made. We have made some unbudgeted expenditures. The awnings on the back of City Hall, we made the determination early in the fiscal year to replace them. We didn't have them budgeted, and they came out of the administration department budget. I'm actually quite glad that we did do that. I'm not sure how the old awnings would have weathered the weather that we've had with snow setting on them, but they have made an improvement to the building and getting in and out of the building. We also include event assistance. There's $10,000 budgeted annually in the EDC area for assistance to various events. We have spent a significant amount of money out of that already this year in repayment for some grants from last year that they didn't provide requests for receipts prior, and so we are spending those out of this year's money. That's something that we need to, as Nikki continues to work and coordinate with the EDC and those grant applications, is review that process and the utilization of that money. We also had finalization of the website design and some final invoices from Native that have come in for that marketing process that occurred after the first of this year. Jeff, you look like you had a question.
I just, for some reason, I thought we put a date on when they had to get the receipts and if they're going to get reimbursed.
We didn't have that prior. We do now. Yep. Managing that process a little bit different. With regard to our benchmarks, records requests processed in a timely manner. We are at 100%. And Linda, help me remember, I believe we had, was it 9 requests that we had?
So far this year.
And that response is within a 3-day period per our open records request. We have 1 work comp claim since the beginning of this year, and our goal is to be under 5 for the year. And I believe that 1 work comp claim, Nikki, also that employee is back to work now, back on regular duty, so no longer on light duty. So we currently have no active work comp claims. We've talked a significant amount about satisfaction with efforts to inform residents, quality of the city's website, and overall quality of services. Again, areas to work for improvements. Yeah.
I just want to back up to that, the records request. How many do we see? What's that What does that line look like?
We've had 9 year to date. And it really kind of depends.
It varies.
As to-
Last year, I mean, the TIF, we had one that was huge, but it was the biggest one we've ever had.
And that was one single request. On average.
On
you
average,
think-
2 to 3 a month, maybe.
And what are they looking for, generally?
It depends. It really totally depends.
We have the Platte Valley Bank who does every month. They want a new businesses. We have a FOIA.
Freedom of Information
Yes.
Act.
They email once every quarter for all our building permits, a list of our building permits. Those are the regulars.
And like I did indicate during the TIF, there was one, that would have been a couple years ago now.
Yeah,
A year and a half ago. But yeah, kind of runs the gamut, I'm trying to think.
yeah. It might be a homeowner that wants their plans, their house plans, if they just moved into the area, if we still have their house plans, things like that.
Sales tax numbers.
We did have that, sales tax numbers.
Then looking ahead to 2020, again, in our department, a lot of work and effort will be follow-up to the strategic. Over the next several months, you'll see in May, we'll have discussions with you all with regard to capital improvement plan and the implementation of that, because we're trying to identify a 5-year plan. Identification and improvement of communication tools. And then as we work support to the downtown in the hopes of being able to look at establishment of a Main Street program, and then transitioning that over to them, but there will be a significant amount of support to that over the coming months. And then as we continue through Nikki's efforts in economic development, which are primary areas that we'll be looking at.
Any questions? Thank you. Nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Stand adjourned for about 25